Welcome to Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com.
Yeah, welcome to Drinkin' Bros, kids. Got a fun Sunday night show for you here. We've got the founder of Four Loko on the show, Chris Hunter. How are you?
Great, man. How are you?
I'm good. It's always weird doing an intro with somebody you live with in college where you're like, hey, dude, did you really live with the founder of Four Loko? I was like, sure did. Sure did.
Wild times.
Are you kidding? Which was wilder, Four Loko or college?
That's a toss-up. I think the Kappa Sig house takes the cake.
It has to, right?
Oh, for sure.
It has to.
Yeah.
Can we go? Are we allowed to go into the crazy shit you were doing back then? Because I know you're writing a book right now. Are we allowed to go into it?
Let's do it.
All right,
Only for you. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So you and I have been friends for years, since college. We won't date ourselves. Just a couple summers ago, we graduated.
Yeah.
That's all.
Recent grads.
Couple summers ago at the Ohio State University. And you had the best drugs. You had the best drugs.
I did. We did.
So we got kicked off campus in Rolling Stone. It was very public. Trent Reznor was on the cover for that issue, and they ended up throwing our fraternity off campus for Reggae Fest. Guy shows up and says, "Hey, I'm a reporter for Rolling Stone," and we were like, "Sure." He looked like Bon Iver.
Right.
I don't know if you remember what that guy looked like. He was like 40 years old, beard.
He should have never been guided around the house.
No, but we thought it was a joke.
Right.
We all thought it was a joke, and then Chris Kalaskis, one of our mutual friends, one of our besties, starts riding him around like a horse through the house and then feeding him drugs, and then girls were taking their tops off and everything else.
Showing him all the places he shouldn't have seen. And
everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Exposed.
And he wrote every single word of it in Rolling Stone.
Absolutely.
And then we were kicked off shortly afterwards. Now, I think I was a year older than you. You didn't get to live in the house anymore, right? They shut it down?
So I was living in the house when they shut it down.
Oh, you were?
Because after that article came out, Nationals came in. They were checking everything out. They actually showed up during Hell Week. I'll never forget this. This guy walks in the door, looks up on the wall, and there's all these rules. And one of them is like, no knives. Because some crazy shit had happened with somebody had a knife on a paddle, somebody's hand got cut, whatever. And he's like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
And we knew it was the beginning of the end then.
Oh, yeah.
It might have been the beginning a little bit before that.
Well, it was fun. And like, it was a documentary on Netflix recently about the 99 Woodstock. It was like, it was too crazy. It was fraternity guys and all this other shit. And it was like, well, no, that was just kind of the 90s at the time, right? Everybody had their era in which they were doing shit. And then it was like ecstasy was big. Coke was kind of getting big for a little bit. It was making a comeback from the 80s and stuff like that. And it's just what it was at that time. So I don't necessarily think it was crazy out of control where it's like, holy shit, people are dying. It was just a lot of fucking fun.
That was wild. And to your point, every I guess, class, whatever, every group had their thing, right? I remember showing up at the Kappa Sig house and people tell me, like, that's a bunch of hippies. They do mushrooms. It's just this chill, like, Frisbee golf place. And within a year when I was there, I was like, where the fuck is that group? Because this is the wild, like, ecstasy, nightclub time, right?
Raves and all that shit were huge.
Full blown, right?
Full blown. Everybody was doing that, and they were like, "Where's the guys in the Birkenstocks playing hacky sack?"
Right.
And that didn't exist anymore.
Right.
And the reason I'm leading off with this today is when you started Four Loko, all of this was completely unsurprising. Because you guys were the ones supplying all the parties, getting everything going, and it was a fucking blast. The obvious move was to move into the liquor space. I just didn't think it would be this.
I don't think I thought it would be this either. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. But to your point, I mean, I met a bunch of people in Columbus, right? Through the fraternity or through promotions or whatever, right? Met a ton of people. And when I decided I was moving to Chicago, I went there with no job, no money, like ran out of cash quick. The only thing I did have was a bunch of business cards from all the people I met. And one of them was this guy that had started this vodka company. I was like, shit, I know how to do this, right? Yeah. So I just bugged the hell out of him till he gave me a job. And that's kind of what led to me being in the industry and then creating, Four and then Four Loko.
Yeah. Because, I mean, look, dealing drugs in college, you got to be good at it not to get caught and be successful. We knew a lot of guys who were. We knew some that weren't, right?
Right.
But the ones who did, and I'm not going to say his name on air because he's still working to this day. When I got to Los Angeles, because we all knew in college what I was going to do.
Right.
And
it was very clear.
Yeah. And I was out like as soon as I graduated, I went to NYU, and then boom, I'm in LA the next day. I mean, literally the next day after finishing NYU. But the first guy I ran into was a CPA who, when I got the new guy and all that stuff, was just like, look, you got to protect your money and everything else. And I was like, he goes, my partner went to Ohio State. And like, who was it? And I was like, oh my God, that was one of the biggest drug dealers in town. And he was like DiCaprio's guy.
No
like,
shit.
Oh, he was one of the biggest CPAs in town for a while. And I was like, he never got caught.
Yeah,
you know?
right,
and
right.
to do it and be good at it and successful at it, you can genuinely run a huge business, because what's going to prepare you for life better than that, to be honest with you?
Look, I mean, it's the ultimate entrepreneurial endeavor, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a risk, there's reward, there's all that stuff. So I feel like it's a pretty common story with entrepreneurs. Like, they've all kind of dabbled before, right?
Yeah, but you did it at such a young age that I think this is just a guess, because we haven't chatted about it. You did it at such a young age that I think it helped you create a business before any of us did. Because to be honest with you, out of college, I think you were the first one to, make something this big, where we all had little, production companies and things like that. Our production company got larger later on. But I remember sitting in an edit when I got the first Four Lokos that you had sent out, and you were looking for investors and things like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, he's really doing this. And it's a huge leap. Now, being in a seltzer with Hard AF Seltzer and all that stuff, it's a massive leap. It's a lot of time, and it's a lot of money and all that stuff. Was that what led you to believe you could do that at least?
Look, I think, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, right? So I tried a bunch of different things. If you remember in college, like, we started a magazine called Four, right, yeah, with Chris and Brad. And
yep.
So there were other things that we had tried, and some worked, some that were legal worked, some didn't, whatever. But I wasn't afraid to go give it a try. And I'm from a very blue collar upbringing. Like, I was like, fuck it, let's give it a shot. If it doesn't work, like, I ran this story in my head. What's the worst case scenario? I'll move back to Youngstown. I'll sleep on my mom's couch. Like, someone will give me credit for it at some point.
Yeah.
I was 25 years old. Like, that's the time to do it. The reality is, and the difference for you, like, at my age now, I would never be able to start Four Loko because of the time that it required. Like, I was gone Sunday through Friday every week for 2 years straight.
Yeah.
Like, with kids and a family, that shit just doesn't work. There's other ways to do it, right? But that's what happened with me. So, yeah, I mean, look, college made me confident in my ability to meet people, make some shit happen. But, there's a lot of luck in it, too.
There is. And we'll get into that next. Because full disclosure, when you sent it out, we were in an edit. I'll never forget the first time I had Four Loko. We were in an edit. You had sent it out, and I think you were looking for investors and all that stuff at that point. And we'd passed it around and tried it. I couldn't get through like 2 or 3 sips of it.
Yeah.
And when you and I chatted, you were like, well, it's caffeine and it's got liquor in it. And I was like, why would somebody want this? Because at the time, no one had ever done it before either. And I didn't understand what the thing was. I was like, all right, well, if you're drinking alcohol, why do you want to stay awake necessarily and everything else? What was the idea behind that? Because I did not think it would work.
So going back to college, right? There was a time where we were having parties at the house, and it was when Red Bull was launching. And obviously Columbus, Ohio wasn't the first market for Red Bull to launch in the US. So we knew about it from like Miami or New York or LA, but it wasn't available. And so me and who ended up being one of my partners in Fusion, Jeff, we found the original like Red Bull concentrate, these little bottles from Thailand. And it was in some store on High Street. And so we went and bought a bunch of it. We brought it back to the house. We didn't tell anyone where we got it. And we were selling them for $5 a piece. And people were ripping through these things at the party. And so then they eventually discovered us, and they found out they could buy it. And then Red Bull launched in the cans in the market anyways. The point was the idea of caffeine and alcohol, like we were drinking it back then, just in a different way, right?
Gotcha.
Then I start working for this vodka company. And it's a horrible named product. It was called Players Extreme. It's like the example of what happens when some rich white guys get together and they're like, let's make something cool. They're like,
which is 90% of the liquor business, by the way.
Exactly, right? They're like, let's call it Players a cool term, and extreme sports are popular. Like, and all credit to them. They went out and tried it. They were ex-Seagram's guys, and they gave me a job. But there was a cherry-flavored vodka. This shit was not selling. And we were like, let's go out and mix this in Red Bull and call it a cherry bomb. And we sold a vast majority of the product through that. So these are stories leading up to like this epiphany moment of like, shit, I'm in a position to do this, right? I have the vodka samples in my trunk. Somebody had given me these energy drinks to try to pitch. I was like, maybe we throw it together. And what ultimately like set me overboard to go with it, I was heading to a comedy show in Chicago with Melanie, with my girlfriend at the time, now wife.
Yeah.
And we're driving up there, and she's like, I'm kind of tired. We should stop at a liquor store. So we stop. She runs in. She's like, I was going to get us a vodka and Red Bull, but I didn't want like a whole bottle for just the two of us and a 4-pack. So I just got these Smirnoff Ices. And I was like, what the fuck? And I said to her, like, I'm gonna make a caffeinated alcoholic beverage, an alcoholic energy drink. And she's like, yeah, okay, let's go to the show.
Yeah.
And that was perfect because it was enough fuel to be like, okay, like, store that shit. I'll show you, right? A couple months later, I was like, hey, by the way, I quit my job today. So that was the beginning.
How was that for her?
We weren't married at the time. She was like, what? I was making $40,000 a year. It was low risk.
Oh,
right?
so it was the perfect time to try it.
It was the perfect time to try it.
Yeah. Because even with the seltzer now, it's the perfect time to try it for us because we have this business. It's successful and everything else. And now you're trying to create like a generational wealth. And we also love it because we go to events and we drink all the time. And that's what we do here, right? So it's like, might as well make something I love. And
it's aligned, right? You're going to be there anyways, drinking something.
Yes, dude.
Why not drink your own product?
And we had done, stuff for White Claw, like, events for them and Vizzy and some other stuff. And I was like, this is fine, but I think we could do it better.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it all starts, right?
Right.
So when the first can was made, who came up with Four Loko?
So when we first started, we had this product called Four, which was just 4 ingredients. We thought we were going to be creative, and we put wormwood in it. You remember wormwood?
Oh yeah,
like absinthe, right? So we put that in it, and we launched in a couple markets. And we quickly realized like no one knew what the fuck wormwood was. And then in some places they're like, I don't know what that shit is, but I'm not drinking it, right? We were launching in Alabama. These guys are like, whatever.
Wormwood? I ain't drinking no fucking wormwood.
Exactly. That was the comment back in a distributor meeting. And those guys hold the keys to the castle, right? They go pitch the product to the stores. And so we quickly realized like we were a little bit off with that. And the product had sold into distributors. There's like this false like confidence, right? We sold into distributors. We're like, yeah, we're making some money. But the distributors aren't selling it to the stores, and the stores aren't selling it to customers. And so we were on the verge of essentially becoming bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
The tap was drying up. And so there was one point where my two partners and I, we had this conversation, and one had left his job in banking. He was making good money. Jeff was in industrial gas sales. He was making good money. Like, these guys had careers to go back to. Their families had invested, mine hadn't. And I was like, look, just go back, find jobs in your career. I'll like try to get the investor money back for your family, and then I'll ride this out and see what happens. But we'd kind of paid attention to the market, and much like what you're doing, we were like, higher alcohol is selling, right?
Yeah.
So let's take it from 6%. Let's take it to 8%. Let's call it 10 max. 4 max. It was actually 10%. And we said we'll give that a shot. And I think that was in like somewhere in like 17, maybe. I think it was like 17. So we put it out, and it did okay. It did well enough to keep us in business. They stayed in the business, but we knew we had to like keep evolving the product, right?
2007, I'm sorry?
2007, yeah.
Okay, yeah, 7. Okay.
Wait, did I say 17?
17. I was are we that old? Shit, man. I'm like, did I just have that 5 years ago? Did you just explode 5 years ago? Yeah.
Off a bit.
Exactly.
No, so yeah, like 2007, right? And so then we were talking, and there was this, we actually weren't the first. There was this product called Sparks that was the original caffeine and alcohol.
Oh, shit, I remember Sparks.
You remember Sparks?
I thought you guys were first.
No, we actually weren't first at any of the things we did, which is kind of interesting, right? And what I mean by that is Sparks was out, caffeine and alcohol. They sold to Miller for $250 million. That made us pretty fucking excited. Like, we got a big market to go after. It wasn't working. And then there was this small company on the West Coast called Juice. JOOSE, and they went in a 24-ounce can, and they were at 9% alcohol. And I remember Jeff calling me. He's like, we have to go bigger, and we have to go stronger. And I was like, there's no way, much like what you said, there's no way somebody can drink 24 ounces of this shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's too sweet. But fuck it. What do we have to lose? Let's try it, right? And so we're talking about what it's going to be. And my partner Jason's like, this shit's crazy. Let's call it Loko. It was literally that, like, loose, right?
Yeah.
We're just making the shit up. And so we were working on different flavor profiles, and one got sent to me, and it was fruit punch. And Jeff called me, and he's like, hey, did you try that? He's like, what do you think of it? I said, man, this shit tastes like liquid gold. And we put it in this camo can with like, this is like, low budget shit. We're just making up, making up names, making up designs. And I'll never forget, we sent the first pallet of that product to one of my areas, which was in North Carolina. I think we might have sent some to California first, but our normal thing was you send the product in, you go in a week later to help support the blitz with the distributor or whatever. And we're used to going in and they're like, oh, we didn't sell any of it yet, whatever. The end of that week, that distributor called me and he's like, hey, we need more of that product. It's gone. And that was like the moment where we're like, holy shit, this is something.
This could work.
This could work.
Yeah. Because some of the stories that were circulating back in LA while you guys were doing this was that you guys were shipping it out to rappers in like the ghetto and shit, and just saying, look, if you rap about the product, we'll give you X amount of cases of it. And I remember one of the videos, the guy was like, I'm going loco for my loco.
Exactly.
And it kind of took off, and I was like, oh shit, that's goddamn, it's the same thing. And then it started to get wild from there, at least in our perspective out in Los Angeles, because we're all the way across the country.
Right.
And we didn't have it yet.
Right.
So we didn't know really what it was. We had Red Bull and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And people in LA at the time were going nuts for Red Bull. Like, they loved it and everything else, but the liquor hadn't come out yet. And we were kind of trying to figure out what the fuck it is you guys were doing. And then cut to, I think you guys were in a bunch of convenience stores in like inner cities and things like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, our mentality was like, get it everywhere, right? You'd go into a distributor and they would all have their opinion on where it worked. Some would say like, oh, this works on college campuses or near it. Some would say like, it's only going to be in the inner city. We said, no, this shit works everywhere. Just get it out and let people decide, right? And so, to your point, 7-Eleven was our number one customer. We were in like little bodegas or independent liquor stores, and it was probably out in LA at that time. You guys just probably weren't shopping where it was sold, right?
No.
Right.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I was out to LA to visit you guys. Like,
yeah.
you weren't going to.
I'm sure it was probably in South Central and shit like that.
Right.
Like,
it was all over.
Yeah.
But it wasn't
not
being
in the
sold
places.
no,
not in Hollywood.
It wasn't being sold where Boogie was hosting a party.
No, exactly. No.
Right? Speaking of, like, I think there was a really unique time around our friends in Ohio, right? Think about like the people that came out of that. Like,
yeah.
To your point, all the stuff you're doing, like what we were able to accomplish, Boogie hosting MTV shows.
He was on that Nickelodeon series forever too, with the kids show forever.
That's right. What was it? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I forget the name of it.
Yeah.
If my kids were in the same era, they'd be watching it over and over again now. But
I mean,
there was a bunch of people that came out of that circle, which was super weird. But we were always pretty ambitious in college. Yeah. Because with the things that you and Chris were doing, right? Yep. We were, bouncers at fucking Ludlow's and paid pretty decently. And we were doing wild parties all over the country and shit. I mean, one time, I remember, I think senior year, we had rented out a table in Miami for New Year's next to Puff Daddy. Yeah. And that was college.
It was 1999.
Yeah, it was college. Yeah. And it was just like, holy shit, dude.
Exactly.
We shouldn't be doing this, but we were. But all of us were pretty ambitious with it. So nothing is really that surprising now, but to get to this level of success, I didn't know until I got involved in this, which is why I wanted to have you on the show, where I was just like, all right, great. How did he fucking do it and then go back through it? Because I remember you guys were teetering on bankruptcy. Then it started to catch in inner cities and everything else. And then with rappers on YouTube and all that other stuff. And then it seemed like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, either people were going to the hospital or kids were dying. And then it just exploded overnight. And it just became complete fucking madness. Like, it was the part in the VH1 documentary where the record scratches and they were like, and then they didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah. That's a good description of it. I mean, it was going crazy anyways. We would have happily never been on anybody's radar, right? Because everybody who was going to drink the drink knew about it. What happened when all this mainstream media hit is all the people that are our age now that might try it but never really drink it, they came out of the woodworks. They wanted to try this mythical stuff that, according to Chuck Schumer, got you higher than ecstasy, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is the kind of shit that happened. And looking back, I mean, it was pretty clear that it was like we were put on an island by the alcohol industry, right? There were two big players at the time. There was Anheuser-Busch and there was Miller Coors. And neither of them were competing in the caffeine alcohol category. And they both were staying away from the controversy. They had bigger fish to fry, right? I always say we didn't have any fucking fish to fry. This was our fish, right?
Yeah.
So we were like, look, we're playing by the rules. We're going to play by the rules until you change them. And those guys, I think, you know, kind of made sure they took advantage of some stories that got out and made sure they got publicized. Like the story that set it off, there was a party in Washington, I think it was Washington State or something like that. A typical college party, right? People are fucking drunk. They're puking, like shit's happening. Somebody went to the hospital. Like it happens every day, right? Yeah. But the headline was new drug hits campuses, sends kids to the hospital. And Jeff like went fucking super sleuth on this shit and figured out how to get the police. Jeff Wright, how to get the police report. And it was like 12 mentions of drugs at this party, like 9 mentions of liquor, 8 mentions of beer, 1 mention of Four Loko in the police report. But the headline fucking swept the nation over a week. We were on every news channel. We were on Chelsea Tonight. We were on Lopez. I mean, every show culminating in my birthday and then Saturday Night Live that night. Like the same night this shit hits.
I'm glad you brought that up. We actually have the clip, and I don't care if this gets demonetized on YouTube. Bob, play the clip because this is actually you on SNL. And I remember we're in Hollywood when we watched it every Saturday.
Right.
So I was just watching this in real time. I had no idea this was going to happen. I was like, what the fuck? Jason Sudeikis actually played Chris Hunter on Weekend Update with Seth Meyers on Saturday Night Live. Go ahead and roll the clip, Bob. So, I mean, how wild was it to see it for you that, I mean, it's your name. It's your full name. It's not just like, oh, hey, it's the creator of Four Loko. It's Chris Hunter. It's Jason Sudeikis. And this is SNL in its prime. Like, it was still good then.
Right.
It was still really fucking good. I was watching it live, and I was like, oh, my God. I didn't think you'd be up that late because it was on West Coast.
Right.
Did you catch it live, or did you catch it the next day?
No, I caught it live, oddly enough. Like, at that time, you know, the weekends, you're out with all our friends, you know, whatever. And it was my birthday, so I would normally be out at some club or having some, I don't know, whatever, doing something. But I was so wiped out from that week. And Melanie's like, what do you want to do? I said, let's just go to dinner. I think we went and saw a movie. We came home. We just happened to flip it on. And I saw the lead up of the product, right? Like I knew they would put the product on it. It was that relevant at that point, right? So they start talking about like this new coffee house in New York City who has like a quadruple espresso. And I was like, okay, man, here it comes, right? Had no clue they were going to announce me. So when they do that, my jaw drops. I'm staring at the TV, the same as anyone else who I know.
Yeah.
And Melanie's looking at me, and I can just feel her like waiting for me to react. The phone starts dinging, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It was crazy.
Because we were all texting at the same time, and you had texted back, and I can imagine your phone was melting down at that point.
Right.
And then after that, I was like, I'm going to give him a minute to breathe, because at least in Hollywood, when you see somebody explode, right? Whatever actor it is, and you see it in real time happen. Like the movie comes out that weekend, it explodes, it does well. Like Miles Teller's going through it right now. He's been on the show. You know, with Top Gun, it's like, dude, you know you're probably getting a million messages at this point. You message him once, and then you walk away and let him enjoy the moment for the next 2 or 3 years because shit's going to get wild. Now, for you, this was so public and big, but also the FDA and all these people were about to come after you at that point. Did you think after this sketch, holy shit, this has gotten too public now and they're going to come down on me?
Well, we already knew they were coming down on us, right? So we had gotten letters from 18 attorney generals, like gently suggesting that we reformulate our product. And there was just no way we were going to like leave this loophole open, right? And so we kind of had to take it all the way at this point when we had made that decision. So we had hired a group to do this GRASS, that generally recognized as safe study. They had never lost when we put one of these studies together to the FDA. And you know this now, like the FDA doesn't even regulate alcohol. It's the TTB, right? So this is the first time in history that the FDA came swooping in and regulated an alcoholic product. So we're going around telling everybody the truth, which is the TTB's already approved all these labels. They approved all these formulas. So has every state. Like, we're good, right? The study says that it's safe. This is nothing new. People have been drinking, you know, wine at dinner with espresso or Irish coffee. This shit's nothing new, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden, I want to say 2 weeks after that, I'm flying down to Florida. Our distributors are in a panic, right? They have millions of dollars of inventory. What are we supposed to do? Are we allowed to sell it? Are we not? Whatever. I'm flying to Florida. I land, and I get on the FDA call. And we're just listening, and our lawyers are handling it at this point. And they come out with a ruling, and they're like, look, this is considered an adulterated product because caffeine is a food additive, and we're taking jurisdiction, and this shit is adulterated and illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, oh, shit. So that was like kind of chaos mode. We got to figure this out. But we kind of knew that was coming the whole time. So,
But at that time, and pardon me for interrupting, did you guys have enough money? This is what I never asked you. Did you have enough money to where if it got shut down, at least your investors are paid back, you guys made some decent cash off of it, and hey, if it goes away forever, who cares? We all got paid.
we had some money. Like it was, I mean, coming from what I came from, yes, we were good, right? I mean, not set forever, but we had made some good money out of it. Knowing that this was happening, we had made some more distributions, but we ended up having to put those back in. And so shortly after, we had a decision of, all right, are we shutting down or are we fucking riding this thing out, right? And we were like, we're riding this thing out. So we put a plan together. We had always had our formula backed up without the stimulants. Mm-hmm. And so within 2 weeks, we had a new product on the shelf that looked exactly the same, just had no caffeine.
Oh, I remember. And I was
right?
like, well, what are kids going to say? And then it turns out, what was the ABV and the high? Like they didn't give a shit. Yeah.
And it was like this image, right? It had become this party drink. Like if you drank a fucking Four Loko, you were making a statement. Like it was going to be a wild night. Kind of like this, right?
Yeah.
You're getting after it.
Yeah.
And so whether it had caffeine or not, it almost didn't matter. But we had to put a lot of money back in, and we did not have enough to cover all that. So we had $20 million liability with inventory. Mm-hmm. We had frivolous lawsuits out there. We were like, there was a point where Melanie was afraid to answer the door because they're like, you can go to jail, like personally can go to jail.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an easy decision, but we were like, we're riding this thing out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then how long did you end up sticking around before switching over? Because at one point, you guys had owned a ton of drinks at your company. And one of them was in Helen Keller. I called you for a movie for Helen Keller's Nine Wolves. Yeah. I was like, hey, dude, it was, by the way, I can tell you who it was who backed out now. It was Buffalo Trace.
Oh, okay.
So Buffalo Trace was new, and they were trying to get into movies and all that stuff. And I was like, man, this is great. It fits the movie and everything else. And they were like, hey, can we have that script? And I was like, you don't want the script. It's just a biopic on Helen Keller. And they were like, I think we need to look at it real quick. We saw some of your other movies. And they looked at it, shot it down, and we needed a liquor. So I called you and I go, do you have any old-timey products? And you go, Not Your Father's Root Beer.
Yep.
So you sent out Not Your Father's Root Beer. It goes around the whole table read. We're all there. We're all drinking it. It was one of the best drinks I've ever had. And I called you and I go, I'll invest all my money in this. And you were like, this one? This is the one you want? And I think you guys might have sold it at that point or something. And I loved it. I love Not Your Father's Root Beer.
It was a great one. It was. I was really proud of that one. I mean, because what we realized at that point was we had two assets, right? We had this valuable brand in Four Loko, and then we also had this national distribution network. And going through what you guys are now, launching the product, you know how valuable that is. Oh, yeah. Right? We were even in a couple other countries. And so there were some cracks forming in my partnership, and we were all trying to find kind of our place. And the thing I like to do is innovation, right? And I also like to work on things that kind of make sense to me. To your point, like you're going to the games drinking anyways, why not have a product that supports it, right?
Yeah, and that's something I love. Like a product we actually love.
Right.
So when we go out, I'm proud of this. So I'm like, hey, everybody can have it and everything else. Where some of the stuff we were drinking, getting paid to drink at the time, like I liked it and it was fine, but I didn't want to drink a full 12-pack of fucking White Claw.
Right. Right.
No.
So you, like might as well make something yourself.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my story with Not Your Father's. I was looking for something to bring to the company. I had met this founder of the company. Basically, it was kind of a formula, right? This brewer had this amazing backstory of like ancestral brewing history and like finding this formula and brewing beer with this kid and making this alcoholic root beer. But he had no name. He had no path to scalability. And I was like, fuck, we need to do this. And my partners were fighting it for a while.
For Not Your Father's Root Beer?
Yeah.
The taste of it alone, it got everybody. And this was before it got big and all that stuff. But it was 25 people in a room.
Yeah.
And this table, everybody loved it.
It was amazing, and it really started this whole hard soda movement, right? Mm-hmm. And so we ended up like acquiring that company on a future royalty deal. We put it out in a very strategic way, and it became the #1 craft beer in Illinois in like 2 months. And then one of my partners had a relationship with somebody at Pabst, and so we did a deal with them where they could distribute it. And within 18 months, we sold it to them.
It was gone. And I was like, what the fuck, bro?
Yeah.
I was like, this one I'll invest in. And you're like, it's gone. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then you guys had at one point, if memory serves me correct, was it margaritas in like frozen margaritas in a bag and all that other stuff. And like, I remember seeing those in grocery stores. And I was like, Jesus Christ, man, you guys are doing everything.
We were going after everything because we also didn't lay anyone off of the company after all the government shit, right? And so we were still like big and selling well, but not as well as we were before.
Kids, today's show is brought to you by ghostbed.com/Drinkin Bros. Finest mattresses in the land. If there's a better mattress out there, I don't know what it is. Frankly, I don't care to, damn it. Bet you the Queen was sleeping on it. I bet you that was it. That's probably the only mattress that beats Ghost Bed. But that was probably made from real goose feathers. I bet you they were shooting geese out of the sky, and then they made a bed out of it. Now, you're not going to get that at Ghost Bed. Instead, you're going to get amazing American comfort, not any of that old English bullshit. And you get 30% off with the promo code DrinkinBros at checkout. Stack up the cart as high as it will go. You can get a mattress, get the adjustable base, you can get pillows, you can get sheets, you can get the weighted blankets, anything you can dream up, put it in the cart, type in the promo code DrinkinBros at checkout, you're going to get 30% off. Now, if you want 40% off, you got to get that bundle package, dog. That's the adjustable base and the mattress combined together for one amazing night of sleep. It's got a sleek remote control that goes with it. You can put it in book mode, TV mode. It's got flashlights, USB ports. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. Once you have it, you'll never go back. I can promise you that. My wife and I have had it for 2 years. We love it. And at the end of your checkout, go to the bottom of the screen. There's a 60-month pay-as-you-go program there with no interest as long as you have decent credit. Check that box, and all the deals I mentioned are applicable with that. And you can walk out of there with a brand new bedroom set for about $25 a month at ghostbed.com/Drinkin Bros. Next up, we got hardafseltzer.com. Let's go. 8% seltzers going straight to the dome. You're welcome, Mom and Dad. Right now, we ship to 41 states. It used to be 42. Tennessee is off the board. We're in 83 stores now in Tennessee, and we just opened like 4 months ago. Pretty goddamn impressive. I was just there in Tennessee. There wasn't a store that I went into that didn't have it. We're super grateful. If you want this cheap as shit, just go to a store in Tennessee, and it's everywhere in Tennessee. If you're in Little Rock, Arkansas, hop on over to Memphis. If you're in Kentucky, go on down to Clarksville. If you're in North Carolina, head on over. If you're in Asheville and all this, head on over to Knoxville and get some. If you're in North Georgia or Alabama, head on up to Chattanooga, and you're good to go. Regular price. A lot of places have it cheaper than White Claw there. Now, if you're like one of us dummies, here in Texas, it's not live yet. You can order it straight to your house at hardafseltzer.com. We only ship by the case. No carbs, no sugars, no gluten if you give a shit about that, but all the goddamn fun. And it's a case, so you can party with the whole neighborhood, all right? We're not keeping it to one or two. We're shipping you a case right to your doorstep, and every penny from the online sales helps us open up a new state. As you hear on the show, we're going into Florida next. That'll be live very soon there. So go to hardafseltzer.com and support us and support the show. We would greatly appreciate it. Last but not least, this also helps the show. DrinkinBros.com. Click on the store. Get some new merchandise. I'm wearing the new t-shirt today. This is a nice olive color. Really brings out my eyes. I've got olive color eyes. You probably can't see it on camera because it's further away, but damn it, the shirt sure as shit brings it out. I've also got the new snapback on. We got a bunch of snapbacks on there. If you have a huge head like myself, if you're rocking a 7 7/8 or an 8, and you're like, hey, dude, I can't get a fucking snapback. These got flex fits in it. And in the back, it's got the snapback. You can put it on 3 or 4, and nobody knows you got a huge head. It helps. It's a nice cover-up. Also got a ton of new tees in the store. Go to drinkinbros.com today. Click on the store and support the show. We really appreciate it.
And so we had to make that gap up. So we jumped into innovation hard, and we did those frozen pouches.
Yeah.
And we even went to Walmart and we developed these like alcoholic push pops. And at the time they were like, we're going to put it everywhere. We were really excited because we were only selling these, little bodegas in 7-Eleven, right? This was a big deal. And they ended up backing out of the deal. And the funny thing is all those things ended up being ahead of their times. If you look right now, there's like these alcoholic push pops and there's these frozen pouches.
Bro, I just took a Jello shot meeting 2 months ago in Nashville for that exact thing because with COVID, I don't know if you know this, but the liquor laws loosened up.
Yeah.
So we can ship to 42 states. So with Hard AF Seltzer, we ship to 42 states. Now, I will say this. With that, when we got into Tennessee and went live, the distributor's like, hey, you got to take down the online store.
Yeah.
We don't want to compete against shipping directly to your house.
Just in Tennessee?
Just in Tennessee for now.
Yeah.
We're about to open up in Florida in, I think, 2 weeks. And we signed a deal with a pretty big company, I'll tell you after the show, that's doing a bunch of stores and stuff. But I have a feeling they're going to want to take it off the line in Florida as well.
In each state that you get a brick and mortar distributor.
Correct.
They want to
Because I think that could be the future. And like in all these investor meetings that I'm in on right now, people ask me like, hey, you're going to stores, you're going to this and this and this. What do you think the future is? And I was like, man, the real future is if Amazon gets involved and they're shipping it to your house within 48 hours, that might nuke out some of the grocery stores and everything else. And I go, they already own Whole Foods.
Yeah.
So they have the fucking space.
It's not a stretch to imagine that.
Not at all. And I don't know why they're not into it because you have companies like Drizzly and those guys who are already doing it in city by city. They're here in Austin already.
Yep.
So I don't know why Amazon wouldn't jump into that, but that's something, later on down the road for the future, because especially with the podcast, our thing with the Hard AF Seltzer is we have endless marketing. So the meetings I'm going on, I'm not asking for any money marketing wise. Like I don't need any of it.
You guys got that.
I just need money for cans. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's totally different than everything else being pitched. And people just don't understand podcasts enough where they're like, wait a minute, you have how many millions of listeners? And I'm just like, dude, I can't have this conversation.
Again? I got to explain this again?
But I'm sure that's what you went through with Four Loko and the caffeine and everything else. And then I was shocked to see that you were doing a new drink called Koya because you don't have social media.
Yeah.
I've been drinking this. This has been everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere I go. And it was one of those things where I was on a lunch break and I just wanted something, because typically we'll keep it keto around the house, low carbs, low sugars throughout the week. Mm-hmm. And they usually have a cheat day with the kids of like pizza or whatever on the weekends and some wine at night, right? And so I'd had these before and I didn't know this was your company.
Yeah.
And then I saw it on your Instagram and I was like, there's no way he went from booze to a keto drink.
Right.
Which is, by the way, delicious. Koya is delicious.
Thank you.
What made you want to make that switch?
So, kind of back to the alignment thing, right? So fast forward through the fusion and Not Your Father's, and it really became apparent that my partners and I didn't see the world the same. And there was a bunch of shit that happened, and we don't need to throw stones on who was at fault, but ultimately I ended up not being involved in the company anymore. We still all own the company. Those guys manage it. They're doing a great job. But I was like, what am I going to get involved in? And so one thing that happened is blinders were off, right? I was so deep in fusion for so long, I wasn't paying attention to any other opportunities. Suddenly, I have unlimited time. I'm just out having meetings, talking to people, right? And I'm realizing what's happening in this whole better for you movement. Paralleling in my life, my second son is born. He's having all these like gastrointestinal problems. My wife is a nutritionalist and adamant about like, functional medicine or food as medicine. And so she's like, our doctor's like, oh no, it's nothing. It's normal. And she's like, it's not fucking normal. Like, we're going to figure this out. Right. And we ultimately determined and understand that he was dairy intolerant. And so we became a dairy free household. Keep in mind, this is, in Chicago in 2013, 14. So it's not, you don't
have a lot of options.
Yeah. Now it's like plant-based everything. Right.
Yeah.
At that time, that wasn't a big thing. Right. And so serendipitously, I had a buddy call me and he's like, hey, you're a beverage guy. I know this girl. We're going to invest in this company. Will you take a look at it? And so I leave all this shit just kind of lines up when you look back at it, right?
Yeah.
I leave my gym. In the lobby of my gym is this drink that he's talking about. It's called Raw Nature 5. I grab one. It's dairy-free. It's essentially Koya 1.0, right? Mm-hmm. I taste it. I'm like, this shit's delicious. And if this can sell in Chicago at this time of meat and potatoes town, like what can it do in LA or New York? Right? And so I called my buddy back. You should invest. I'm going to invest too. 6 months later, the company's on the verge of insolvency. It's about to go away. And I jump in and I'm like, hey, there's an opportunity here. Me and these two guys, we're going to invest. We're going to kind of take control of the company. And there were 3 criteria. One is that we pivoted the product. It couldn't be called Raw Nature 5. It was a horrible name, horrible package. 2, we had to get some support from this main broker in the space. And 3, we had to get some support from Whole Foods. So I went in a couple meetings. All those things fell in line. And I was like, I'll jump in, pivot this company. That's where we came up with Koya. We used this great branding company. And we launched it in 15 nationwide with 2016 nationwide with Whole Foods. And so that was how I jumped in. It was like personal alignment, right? So like when I think about what I used to do, it's like I was in my early 30s on fucking spring break with Four Loko, right?
Yeah.
It didn't really align at that point. Like now I'm flying up.
Don't tell my wife this. Yeah. Hard AF Seltzer.
She's with you at the games, right?
Some of them. Yeah. Some of them.
You're visible enough on social.
Yeah. I can't do anything. So yeah.
But you know, I go to Oakland with my family to go to a Wanderlust event, like a yoga festival that we're sponsoring with Koya.
Yeah.
And we go to Whole Foods. My family's having lunch, and I'm over there working. It was just like a real alignment around life at this time. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
Yeah, so I was drinking this, and I'm in downtown Austin, and I was waiting for a lawyer to come for a business meeting. And there was a bunch of like white women who looked like they just came back from yoga.
Right.
And this was sitting on the table, and I was halfway through one, and they were like, "Oh my God, is that cool? We love Koya." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And that's when I realized this was getting huge.
Yeah.
It was about a year and a half ago, and I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "This is my buddy's company," and they're like, "There's no way." We ordered this by the cases and everything else.
Amazing.
Do you guys sell on Amazon? By the cases or something?
We sell on our own D2C by the case.
You do? Okay.
But it's a refrigerated beverage, right? So it's a double whammy in a negative way for direct-to-consumer brands. We're heavy because we're a liquid, and we're refrigerated.
Yep.
So we do it, but it's not profitable. We try to drive people to stores.
Same, and I tell the people the same thing. Like the reason why we ship to people's houses, it's not profitable. The margins aren't great, but we want to get the product out to everybody.
Yeah.
And at least taste it and be like, all right, great. Which flavors do you like? And we'll switch flavors and everything else.
Absolutely, right.
But yeah, I'll never forget sitting there. And then, I mean, I got attacked by these ladies. And they were like, dude, we drink the shit out of Koya.
I love it.
And they were like, and I see it literally everywhere. But I don't see a lot of health drinks in convenience stores. Was that the intention with this, to try to pop in the marketplace where it was like, hey, dude, let's go into 7-Eleven where you don't see this?
Yeah. I mean, you were talking earlier about like evaluating the opportunity at hand, right? And so I was like, I'm not going to jump into something and put my money or time behind something that doesn't have a potential big payoff. And so dominating the natural channel, meaning like Whole Foods and Sprouts, that's great. Mm-hmm. But that's not what I was out to do. I wanted to dominate the market, right? And so I always use this example, coming from Youngstown, Ohio, blue collar town, like, you know, people aren't going to pay, these are $4, right? That's not cheap for a drink. It's not expensive when you compare it to a latte or whatever, but people aren't going to pay $4 for something that's like perceived as healthy, but tastes like shit in Youngstown. They'll do that shit in LA all day, right?
Oh, yeah.
But not in Youngstown, or put in any city you want, right?
Sure.
And so we focused on making sure it was delicious. That way it had a broader market. Well, we were talking right before, like this product is vegan. We don't advertise it as vegan. You never would have picked it up.
I never would have grabbed it.
Right?
Yeah, that's serious. I never would have picked it up.
And so that's exactly what we're going after, is like, this is approachable for everybody. And so for it to be for everybody, it has to be everywhere. And so I would say 3 years ago, we were talking to 7-Eleven. They were our largest customer at Four Loko. And I knew the power. Like they built almost a $200 million brand out of 7-Eleven and C-stores. Mm-hmm. Like it's a great channel, but no one was going there. And so they started understanding that consumers were changing. They took a chance on us. We did a little test in Southern California. And then just last year, we went nationwide with them. So it was always part of the plan to make sure like 7-Elevens and Walmarts were represented, but we had to win it at Whole Foods and Sprouts first.
Yeah. Because that's always key with something healthy, where it's just like, all right, great. Because then you have to take those numbers to the distributors and be like, see, it's doing well here.
Yeah.
We should put it in 7-Eleven and everything else, and then go through the whole song and dance.
Absolutely.
So how did Chris Paul get involved? Is he one of your investors? Because I saw him on your social media, and he was promoting the product and everything.
Yeah.
Is he one of your investors in Koya?
Yeah, he is. He's been a great partner. So look, the funny thing is I don't really know celebrities or athletes. Like I just don't follow a lot of stuff, right? And so we had always talked about, do we get some celebrity involved? And if we do, how do we make sure they're aligned? Because back at Fusion, we had this brand called Moscato Life. It was like when Moscato was blowing up. And we brought T-Pain in as our partner. And as cool as T-Pain is. And
how was that?
It was fun. I mean, we were down at his house outside of Atlanta. You know, T-Pain is exactly who his image on.
He can really sing, though.
He can sing, right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think he lives the lifestyle he portrays, right? Which is great.
Sure.
And it was fun. But I think for him at that point, it was like, just give me a check and let me check the boxes, right? And it was fine. He didn't do anything wrong. But my point was, when we got into this, if we were going to do a celebrity partnership or an athlete partnership, it had to be organic, right? This person had to really like the product. And so we were talking about all kinds of different people who might fit, because I don't know any. I'm not like, oh, it's got to be this woman or that guy, because I don't know the celebrities or the athletes. So we were working with this group, and they brought us a couple different people, and they mentioned Chris Paul. And I was like, I know he plays basketball. I don't know much about him. Did some research, found out he was plant-based. We had a meeting with this team. They were great. And I was like, look, if we're going to do this deal, I need to meet with Chris firsthand and talk to him. We got to like each other as people, right?
Sure.
Great dude, lives the lifestyle he's portraying. Like he's all plant-based, talking about the impact it had on his life and his family.
Big family guy, yep.
Big family guy. You know, his career is going long, which is great, right?
Hell yeah. He's still playing at a high level for the Suns.
Exactly.
If he stopped getting injured in the playoffs, right, he'd probably be a two-time champion right now.
Man, these last 2 years were tough.
Brutal.
As a new basketball fan, watching him, I was like, oh, come on. But yeah, so that's how it came about. And then he was willing to put his own dollars against it, right? And that says something. And so he did that, and he's been a huge supporter of us, you know, getting the product out from an awareness standpoint, exposing us to his, you know, community or followers. And we did some programs with him where we did a limited time offer at Walmart on Walmart.com. And it was valuable. Like, he showed up to buyer meetings, right? Like, that's going above and beyond for someone like him. So,
well, I feel like more athletes are getting involved in that, and more celebrities are, where back in the day, it was maybe just an appearance check and then that was it. But now everybody wants ownership, and rightfully so. Yep. Because, you know, on my side of it, I'll look back at the actors one of the ones that truly changed my life, and he doesn't know, was Ashton Kutcher. And I'm writing this movie for him, and I was unaware how much money he had in Silicon Valley. And like, I was finding more and more of our meetings were just business, where he was just like, man, I got this and I got Uber and I got, I mean, if you look at his investment history, right, it is massive. And I was like, oh shit, Ryan Reynolds was doing the same thing way back in the day. So I'm not talking just now. I mean, those guys were like the first two in that I could remember, where I was like, oh shit, maybe there's more money in that than there is in acting. And then sure enough, you see the deals as they go on. Ryan Reynolds was, what, $350 for a gin company?
Aviation gin, yeah. It was an amazing story. But I think one of the first ones that I remember was when 50 Cent got paid on vitamin water.
Oh shit, you're right. Yes.
And it was like a $4 billion transaction. He made like a couple $100 million off of his investment. And it was like, it was eye-opening for everybody. So that's the story that we always talk about if we're talking to a celebrity or an athlete. It's like, you want to be the guy who took home the $20,000 or the $500,000, the $1 million check, or you want to be the guy that gets $200 million from your investment, you know?
Yeah. The one thing that I will say is, when you meet them, it's 50-50. Right. Some people just want the quick money, and they're like, hey, dude, I don't want to deal with this. Like, I'm good to go. Others are like, hey, I'm in it for the long haul. Chris Paul makes sense. He seems like that guy.
Yeah. And I think it probably matters where they're at in their career too, right? Like, we talk to other people who are younger athletes, and they're like, look, it's their first year or it's their second year. They got to get some cash in their pocket, right? And I get that. And we were even talking to Jake Paul's team and Logan Paul's team, and he was like, look, I have to get checks and I have to get equity. And I was like, we're the equity play, because the checks we're not just going to write, right? Right. And this was for another brand that we were looking at, but yeah, I agree. It's 50-50.
What year was that? Do you know?
2 years ago, it was with SoulSet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, they've got an energy drink out now that destroys.
Prime.
Prime is everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it was even at my gym. There's a Gold's that's not too far from here that I work out at. And that's even in Gold's. And I was just like, holy shit.
I mean, good for them. They're killing it. And they did a great partnership. There's a group called Congo Brands that does Alani Nu, which is like an energy drink and a protein brand as well. And and they were like the back-end operational component of Prime, from my understanding. So it works for both, right? Yeah. It's kind of like you with this, like somebody on the backside just calling on the distributors instead of
Well, I will say this: like, I sit in all the meetings and I do all the things because I'm interested and I'm curious to know, and also like things get fucked up along the way, and like nobody ever wants to tell you that.
Yeah.
Because most of the days, and my producers will tell you this, I'm pretty pissed off walking into the studio.
Yeah.
Pretty goddamn pissed off. I mean, one day it's a call of like, hey, dude, we had a pallet that got destroyed, and it's 100 cases.
Yeah.
Great. How much is salvageable? 48. All right, can you dry it off? Is there anything you can do?
Right.
And it's just like, it's going to go back to the fucking warehouse. And you're like, God damn it, man. And then it's something else, or a frivolous lawsuit, or whatever it is. And that's every single day that you're dealing with it. But, you're trying to create this kind of generational wealth. Like you were talking about earlier, where you're like, dude, I'm going for the big sale.
Yeah.
If it's going to go and pop, like I wanted a big number out of it. And then that way, whatever happens in life, I can sit on the beach. My kids can be jackasses somewhere and live off me or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I had this business coach back in the Four Loko days, and it was the first guy to ever like break down. He did these like behavioral assessments or personality, assessments. And he's like, look, if you have this fucking image of retiring on a boat and like sitting back with a margarita, he's like, get rid of it now because you'll end up an alcoholic, fucking divorced. He's like, you need to be driving at things, right?
Yeah.
You need to be accomplishing, or you're going to be fucking miserable. And it was good that he said that, because I don't have this image of retirement being doing nothing. It'll never fucking happen. Like, will I want to slow down one day? Of course. Like, do I want to spend more time with my kids now? Of course. But the idea of like retirement in the traditional sense, no interest.
Yeah, same here. Because people always ask all the time, like listeners will come in. We leave the doors open. So if you're in town, great, come and listen to the show.
Oh, they just pop in?
Yeah, so I mean, there was about 20 of them here. They drank a bunch of hard AF yesterday, went out last night, one of them got arrested.
Oh, shit.
So they're not here. But we did send them to the concert tonight. They're front row. It's Bush and Breaking Benjamin and Alice in Chains tonight. So they're having a blast. But yeah, we leave it open. Everybody can come and drink and do all the fun stuff. But they always ask the same thing. Hey, dude, if you sell this seltzer company for a gajillion dollars, are you going to stop doing the podcast? The answer is no, because I love doing this every day. And you and I were chatting beforehand of this is the only job that I get to talk to somebody about a career or a path in life that I have no idea about. Every day is a fucking mystery. Anybody who watches this show can go through the guest list over the past 7 years and see, like, dude, it is porn stars to Oscar winners to, Malcolm Gladwell, whoever it is.
Yeah.
And that's what makes life interesting every day. So I wouldn't want to stop doing this. It would just make my life easier.
Of course.
Selling this, obviously. But
there's that backstop, right? But you have the best situation ever. You get if you're curious about somebody, you're like, hey, come on the show. And then you get to chat with them, right? Amazing.
100%. Like perfect. Whoever. And there's times we'll all hit people up, and some of the listeners will be like, why did you call that guy? And I was like, man, just kind of looking for an edge. One of them was Tim Grover. He was the personal trainer for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant.
Okay.
And for years and years and years. And I was like, I read his book, and I was a huge fan of it. It was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list forever. And like, for one guy to work with the two, in my opinion, the two most motivated guys of all time,
right?
At least in sports, I was like, I want to at least pick his brain and find out what they did and why to try to gain some edge about something. And that was one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yeah, you're like, what's the commonality here? And I want to learn about it, right?
100%.
Yeah.
So I was able to hit him up. He came on the show. He was like, how many listeners? Great. I'll come on. He had a book out.
Yeah.
The new book. And he was like, great, I'll come on the show. I was like, awesome. So I got to pick his brain forever. And then, we promoted his book, obviously. But that's the beauty of this job where, you can just pick up the phone and be like, all right, this guy, let's get him on the air.
Right. People are going to answer and they're going to respond, right?
Yeah.
I love that idea of pushing the edge, though. That's kind of what I'm all about now is like, what's the next thing to grow, right? Personal growth. Like for me, there was this big eye opener. Like, look, college was wild, right? The mushrooms and all these things. Like I'm no stranger to psychedelics, but when my split up from my partners happened at Fusion, I was kind of lost. I was like, fuck, what am I going to do now, right? Like, and fortunately, we were financially in a position where I didn't have to run out to do anything. Like we weren't going to not eat, right? But I was trying to figure out what my next move was, and serendipitous events and conversations led me to Peru doing ayahuasca, which is like a popular, common topic now. But at the time, I was like, I don't even know what this shit is, and it was eye opening, and that kind of started me on this journey of like, what else can we do, right? Well, like, how can I keep pushing the edge? So
What do you think is after this?
I don't know, man. We have you remember Greg Kuda from college? We have a separate commercial real estate development company. We've done a first project up in Minneapolis. I've always been interested in this idea of like urban development and urban redevelopment, maybe based on Youngstown, you know?
Yeah.
So I'd love to keep dabbling in that.
Are you the guy that's going to restart Youngstown?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe.
They always ask.
Yeah.
In Ohio.
Yeah.
In Ohio, they're like, oh, Youngstown back in the day was amazing. And it was like, it was Mob, and it was the DeBartolos, and, you know, who owned the 49ers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they were like, man, somebody should revitalize Youngstown. And they pitched somebody, God damn it, I forget who it was. And there was a huge article about it in the New York Times. And they were like, what, is Youngstown going to come back to life? Maybe you're the guy to do it.
Who knows? Maybe. I would love to. I mean, I'd love to figure out something to revive that city. There's such great history back there. I mean, you mentioned too, the guys, there's positive and negative, right? All the sports, like, people don't realize how rich in sports Youngstown is.
Yeah.
The Stoops brothers, Ray Mancini, Kelly Pavlik, middleweight champ, like Maurice Claret, good and bad.
Good and bad. Jim Tressel, I think, is is he the athletic director there at Youngstown State?
I think he's the president.
Oh, is he really?
I think he might be the president, yeah.
Man, he's not only Klein, he's the president.
There you go.
There you go.
But yeah, so who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, it's wild. And the reason I ask is there was a guy who owns the Cleveland Cavaliers. Is it Dan? What's his last
Gilbert.
name? Is it Gilbert? Yeah, Dan Gilbert. He's trying to revitalize, has been for years, Detroit.
Yep.
So he bought a bunch of shit in Detroit, and he's trying to revitalize that. Thus far, it has been unsuccessful, but you never know what's going to happen. And the oddest thing is, with everybody working from home now, you could live anywhere you want as long as it was relatively nice and it was fixed up. And why not Youngstown, you know?
That's one of the tough parts, though, about Youngstown and the whole Rust Belt, to be honest. I mean, is like, if you can pick to be in warm weather, and like growing up, there was Ravenna Arsenal. It was a military arsenal. And I never thought twice about why it was near us. And then when I got older, I realized it was because we have like some of the highest cloud cover in the country. That's where we grew up, right?
Yeah.
So like,
I didn't know that.
Are you really going to choose to go there when you, to your point, can work from wherever? It's a tough one to overcome.
Well, Ohio in the Midwest is, we chat about this behind the scenes all the time. It's gray like 250 days out of the year in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan.
Right.
Those three states in particular, you're like, God, it's great. It's nice. Like, we went back for that Notre Dame game, and it was like, all right, great. It's 78 at kickoff. This is fine. But it's been gray, drizzled a little bit in the morning, and, you know, you kind of wake up and you're already sleepy and kind of depressed about it.
Yeah. You're like, it's cool to pop in for a game day, and then I get to go home.
And then I get to leave.
It's funny you say that, because growing up, I always remember hearing about Denver and how much snow was there. And I was like, oh, that place has to be miserable. And I didn't go there probably until, I don't know, 7 years ago. Like, Denver's fucking amazing. Yeah, it's chilly, but it's like sunny all the time, right?
Yeah, a lot of active people.
Yeah.
The weed's great there.
Right, exactly.
Everything.
Exactly.
Everything across the board.
God, there's another one, right?
Weed?
The weed industry, man.
Hey, so a lot of the conversations I get hit up on, in particular in the RTD space, is weed. And somebody just gave me one. Shit. Because our guy, so we were with Life is Brewing in Nashville, right outside of Nashville, who does all the Hard AF, and they do a bunch of other brands.
It's your co-packer?
Yeah, it's a big place. And they are doing a drink called High, and it is THC 5 milligrams in kind of seltzer water. And it's in 3 states right now, they said. I don't know that they could ever get it in Texas, to be honest, but I just had, they let me take a case of it when I was leaving, and I was like, oh shit. Maybe this is a thing. One of our biggest advertisers a couple years ago was Kill Cliff CBD.
Oh, yeah.
And they had 25 milligrams of CBD in every single can, and I fucking love their product.
Yeah.
And they exploded. I think they got bought by maybe Southern or somebody like that.
Boy, they were off to the races earlier, but the THC category with beverage is really interesting, and that's actually one of the things I'm involved with. We just launched a brand called Drippy, and it's kind of like the Four Loko of THC drinks, right? It's 10 milligrams of THC and 10 milligrams of, not CBD, it's CBA. I think it's a different strain, right? Yeah. And my partners in that, they're like deep in the space, right? I'm not a huge consumer. I'll take like a gummy before bed or something like that.
Same. I'm the same.
But these guys, they're like, oh, this is like nothing for the bud tenders, right? So we're just launching it in California. It's a huge white space, but going back to the idea of of the people coming out of Ohio State. There's a guy, I don't know if you knew Brad Melshanker when we were there. This dude started 710 Labs and has been passionate about weed and just crushed it. Like, he's a true pioneer in the space. Another guy that was at Ohio State in our time. So I think.
Well, he had to do that out of necessity. You know, because the ghetto birds would fly around. If there wasn't snow on your roof, they knew it was a grow house, and they would bust it. So it was just like, ah, shit.
Right.
When the weed went dry on campus, you knew why. It was like, fuck, man, somebody saw the snow was melted off the roof. Yeah.
They knew.
They knew. So he's big in that space now. What's he doing with it?
He's done, so this company 710 Labs, from my understanding, was like at the forefront of like high quality dabs, which I didn't even know what they were. Right?
Yeah.
Do you know what they are?
That's beyond me.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
No. Giorgio, that was one of our producers. He's a big dab guy.
Do you know 710 Labs?
Yeah.
So anyways, he was at the forefront of that. But I think the next frontier is psychedelics and especially psilocybin.
I do too. So my co-host Dan Holloway, who's not here because he's at the concert with the rest of our listeners. He's big into psychedelics, but microdosing.
Yep.
So he doesn't go hard.
Yep.
It's just very little doses here and there, and he's got PTSD and everything else. Helps with that.
Yep.
And it's. The only thing I'm curious is, like, how do you get it in the Bible Belt? Like, that's with all of this shit. That's what I wonder. And I've had this weed conversation with a million people because we have another trademark on another RTD, which I'll tell you after the show because it's patent pending right now. But is how you get past the Bible Belt, because I don't know, today's president, Biden, he could pass an executive order today if he wanted to and just legalize weed. So could have Trump. Nobody has done it for whatever reason, and I don't really understand it. My guess or my theory was that it's because of religion, and they're worried about everybody, everybody's going to get high. You don't think so?
No, it's medically illegal in Oklahoma, has been for a while, medically legal in Missouri now, medically legal in Kansas.
No. I understand all that. But why not just legalize it in general to all 50 states and then tax it so that way you could use the money for education or roads or whatever you wanted to do? And it also gets all these people out of jail who've been in jail for weed.
Yeah, but that's assuming they come back and do the reform, right? Like, it's really fucked up when you think about, like, what was the woman who got busted in Russia for a little bit of weed?
Brittany Griner.
Right,
Yeah.
like, and totally agree, they should get her back. That's ridiculous. But there's all these people here right now who are incarcerated for weed. Like, we should reform that.
I agree, but make a overhaul to the entire thing, right?
I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, so we've been saying that for years and years and years, and like living in LA all those years, people in California have been saying it for years. Oh, dude, it's gonna be any day. It's any day. It's any day. Now you're looking at 20 years later, and it's like, hey, it's not any day. What's your theory, Bob?
Honestly, it probably has more to do with either one. They're just like cowards, and they're just like, I don't want to making any ripples will maybe lose me votes hypothetically.
But that's what I think, right? But I think those votes are coming from the religious side of it, only because being in a liquor space, like here, you have to go to a liquor store if you want liquor. You can get this in grocery stores and it's fine. But liquor, you've got to go to a liquor store and a liquor store only. Even if you're a vodka-based seltzer, like High Noon, Barstools, for example, those are at a liquor store only, and it's like, well, when's that going to end?
Yeah.
So
there's so much money behind it. I think money is the answer too, right? It's like, I always thought when Denver showed that they had a surplus and their schools were completely funded based on the tax of marijuana, I was like, oh, everyone's going to fucking do this because every state needs money.
That's
right?
exactly what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's a matter when the taxes get too high and people say we've had enough. This is the other source of income. I don't know.
Take Texas, for example. These property taxes that I'm paying here are the highest I've ever seen in the nation. I mean, it's not even close. It was double than what I had in Los Angeles. And like, as much as I would love to shit on California again and be like, hey, dude, fuck. No, dude, I'm paying double. And they're like, well, you're not paying state taxes here. And I was like, cool, man, but state taxes, I can at least work my way around a little bit.
Right. There's
property taxes. There's no wiggle room in that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So why wouldn't you use that here? And, back to your Denver thing, we were there. We were doing a live show there, a series of them, and right when all of that stuff happened, and all the distilleries dispensaries, dispensaries were opening, and we saw how much money they were making in the lines and all that other stuff. And then I remember looking at the numbers, and I think they made $87 million in like taxes just that year. And there was only a handful of stores that were open. And I was like, but what if this was everywhere?
Right.
Because the other thing I noticed about Denver when I went back, and I'm not sure if you've been there multiple times, but going back a few years later, the interest in the weed when we were there, when it first started, was there was lines and there was out the door and whatever else. Then people just got used to it. Nobody made a big deal about it anymore.
Yeah.
So why not do that with the rest of the country?
I think it's a matter of perception too, right? I mean, the weed industry's done a great job of positioning it as better than alcohol, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of people saying like, oh, THC's bad, and maybe they're right. I don't know, but it doesn't cause inflammation and all these things. And so I think is when that perception gets a little more ingrained, and that may take a long time, right? In the Bible Belt and such, I think it could shift.
Yeah, because you're looking at roughly 18 states that do it, and that was a big decision for us when we started this. Was all right. I don't want this to be in liquor stores because it was originally we were pitched at least by a company. It'd be cheaper if you went vodka based.
Yeah,
like High Noon.
It'd be cheaper.
Cheaper, yeah. And they said, hey, look. The base, because you got to add the base and then the formula to it. So they're like, the base will be cheaper and it'll make your margins better and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, cool. But then we have to be in liquor stores in like 18 states.
Yeah.
And what do you do on Sundays and ball games and all that other stuff? And I was like, nah, let's just stick traditional. I want this to be in every single store possible. Because we have the same distributors probably as Koya, for example. Like Brown is our distribution in Texas. You go,
yeah, we use them with Four Loko. They don't distribute Koya because you have to be refrigerated, and most of these guys don't have refrigerated trucks. So we were talking a little bit about it before. I used to bitch about the alcohol distributors because you get into an exclusive contract and they cover the entire area, and that's your only option. But the grass is always greener. When I got into non-alc, it's like 5 different distributors and layers to touch every store in that market, right? So it's kind of like there's good and bad associated with both. Those guys were great. They were a good distributor for us.
Yeah, and then you got to keep your eye on them, right? I mean, not Brown, but all 5 distributors in that one city.
Yeah.
Cut to 50 states. Then you're going to have all these other people and everything else.
Manage inventory and make sure you put, it's a big, look, beverage is not easy.
It's not.
I kind of think I'm what's the right term?
Expert?
No.
You've had so many drinks. You're up there. Like you're up there on the expert level of it.
Well, I'll take that. But I kind of think I'm what's it when you enjoy pain?
Oh boy, masochist.
I think I'm a masochist. I went from alcohol, which is fucking tough, to refrigerated beverage, which might be harder. Like I don't know what I'm doing with my career.
Because you got to get on the cold trucks, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Even harder.
Shit.
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of listeners out there who make their own beers, make their own liquors. A lot of them are here in the backgrounds, and we certainly drink them on the show whenever people visit. What's the biggest thing you would recommend to let's say a new company like ours, where we're in one state right now, second state is coming. What do you do to get a brand to explode across all 50 states?
I think it matters what you're trying to accomplish. And what I mean by that is to get it across all 50 states is it takes a lot of money and a lot of support from your team. You got to have a big team to do it, right? What I would recommend to a brand currently in the current environment, look, fundraising is tough. People want proof of market and proof of product market fit. In this current climate, I would pick a home market and just dominate that market. Like Tito's is a great example, right? Deep Eddy did the same thing. They just dominated Austin first. Yep. And then they went from there. If you can dominate a home market, you can go out and pitch that velocity and that movement in that market to these investors. You can get some money in and then expand. I think a lot of people, and we did this, so take the easy money. Like a couple states call you, they're like, we want the brand. You put it there, but if you're not able to support it, it could be a death spiral.
Sure. So, it'll fall apart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How many states do you need to have for a big sale? Because we all see the big sales that we were talking about earlier with like Ryan Reynolds and those guys. And it seems like it's almost overnight for them, where it's a year and a half, 2 years. George Clooney, the tequila was $3 billion. And
it was a big one.
Huge.
Yeah.
But those are the flashy headlines that you see. Is that possible for a normal person? Like taking Not Your Father's root beer. When you guys got them until a sale, How long? What was the period of time for those guys?
So that one was fast. It's a good example of how fast it can happen. That was truly 18 months, which is kind of crazy. Now we didn't go sell for $3 billion or anything. Like we made a good sale, but it was a very unique product, and so I think that's what matters, right? If you're in a place where there's just nothing like it, which is what we were in, everybody wants it. If it hits and it's easy to expand fast. But if you're in a really competitive market where there's other options and alternatives, it's tough.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's kind of the question, right? It can still happen, but do you have something unique enough? Like with Four Loko as an example, we barely spent any money on marketing. We made the product stand out on shelf. When you walk those doors, you saw this crazy fucking camo can. Like, what is that? Right? It was different. And then you saw us 12% alcohol. I'll give that a shot. Right?
Yeah.
It was very unique. If it was another light beer at that time, not a chance.
Yeah. No, I agree. Now's the point of the show. We get to the Drinkin' Bro of the Week, which is someone who has inspired you or helps you become the person you are today. Who would you like to give the Drinkin' Bro of the Week to?
Oh, my gosh. Someone who has inspired me. Let's see. It's a tough one. I think early on, I read a lot about Sidney Frank, the guy who imported Jägermeister and created Grey Goose, and that was a pretty big inspiration for me. He was a really avid marketer and promoter of his brands. He kind of lived it, and so.
Is he alive?
No. No.
Weird. The creator of Jägermeister isn't alive?
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
Boy, that's killed a lot of people, hasn't it?
Some people may say the same about me. So, so luckily I'm here.
Probably. Oh, that's the guy who invented Four Loko? Fuck that guy, dude.
That guy's alive?
Yeah, that guy's still alive.
Made
Holy
it
shit.
out.
Yeah. Now you're doing Ironmans and all kinds of shit. It's
right. Exactly. Very different.
So you are able to separate it. Homeboy just wanted to party, though.
That's right. Well, I don't know if he was out partying. My point was he would show up at these distributor meetings, like living the brand. The dude was in like bright red suits. He just understood the showmanship of building brands, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think that's what I admire that kind of I took away.
That's funny. Somebody sent me Bang energy drink.
Oh yeah.
Somebody sent me the picture of the president. Bob, can you pull up the picture of the president of Bang energy drink?
He's a nut. I don't know him personally.
I don't either. And like listeners keep sending it in, and they're like, "Dude, get this guy on the fucking show. What's his story?" He kind of looks like a balding version of the guy who owns Papa John's.
You don't want this guy on the show.
What's his sitch in real life? Do
He's
you know?
a bad dude.
Is he really?
He's a bad dude.
Pop a picture open for people who haven't seen him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he rolls out and he's got this Bang gold chain on everywhere he goes. And again, the front is balding. You could tell he put some plugs in. They didn't take. Very LeBron James-ish.
Right.
And I've seen him in, like, I went down a rabbit hole one night on his Instagram and him in, like, interviews and stuff. And you're just like, what the fuck is with this guy? Do you know the backstory? Why is he a bad dude? What's he doing?
A lot of allegations.
With what? Drugs, women?
Women.
Oh, okay. Well, is that a shock? Are you
I mean, the
seem
whole
surprised
image
by that?
The whole image of the Bang brand is tits and ass, right? So
Yes.
it makes sense.
It makes sense. It makes total sense.
I don't know him, but it makes sense.
It makes total sense. You don't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, you don't make sense
Good.
with Four Loko. For real.
Yeah.
Like, when people see you, they would have no idea. And I'm sure you've sat down at dinner parties and they're like, hey, what do you do? And you're like, well, I created Four Loko. Shut the fuck up. Because you expect it to be like some crazy Mexican dude who's, who's in a gang.
Firing
and you're
fucking
like,
guns,
yeah.
and shotgun and bottles, liquor straight out of the bottle.
Yeah.
I never lead with it. People ask what I do. I'm like, I sell drinks. Like that's where we go.
It's hard, right? Because you can't say what it is.
Yeah. I mean, and it just takes over the conversation. So there's no. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah. Because whenever we talk about like podcasts and shit, they're like, oh, yeah, it was a guess. Because people still don't really know podcasts. You're like, oh, so-and-so. And they're like, shut the fuck up.
Tell me all about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I understand it. Yeah. That's funny. Tell everybody where they can find Koya.
So you can find Koya in basically every retailer across the country. We're in about 20,000 doors, ranging from 7-Eleven and Walmart and Target to Whole Foods and Sprouts and H-E-B.
Yeah.
So, yeah, everywhere and online at drinkkoya.com.
Nice. Congratulations,
Thanks,
man.
brother.
It's just hit after hit for you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you as well. Let's grab some dinners, some drinks, and then we'll go over your book. What stage are you in the book right now?
We're probably a couple months away from being ready to launch it. So we're final edits, some revisions, just polishing this up. This is my first time I'm talking to a veteran here, so I'm looking to
both. Look, it's the same thing with the Hard AF Seltzer. Like, so I'll be able to ask you the same shit.
There you go.
Later on tonight, where it's just like, all right, cool, we'll go back and forth. I'll tell you the good and bad in it for sure.
All right.
I will say this: books and booze is kind of the same, where there's only a couple distributors left, like the big guys. In books, they're now, if the Simon & Schuster deal goes through with Penguin, you'll be down to 4. 4 publishers total in the United States of America, which seems bizarre to me.
Yeah.
And with the booze space, it feels like there's 4 in that, right?
Mass consolidation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I don't know. Clearly our DOJ has stepped in for the Simon & Schuster deal, and I think it's a bad thing as far as advances go, because they don't want people to go too high and everything else. Whereas the beer and wine space, I'm not sure, because it would get it out to a shit ton of people. And I recognize the value in getting millions of cans out versus hundreds of thousands of cans.
Look, there's new tiers of distributors emerging. I met one in California. They're like a very aggressive distributor who wants to build brands. And I think when you get these bigger distributors, that's uncommon. They're like, yeah, we'll take it and we will see what happens. But if you go with the big guys, you get access everywhere, but you got to plan to go do the work for them until you become relevant enough, right? And the small guys, they may not go everywhere, but they give a shit, right? So it just depends.
You just described the publishing world.
Yeah, perfect.
It's a perfect analogy, perfect way to end the show. We appreciate you taking the time today. If you're out there, grab Koya. It's delicious, low carbs, low sugars. It's great in the afternoon if you're just having a meal replacement. In my opinion, that's the times when I drink it. It's usually in the afternoon where it's a nice meal replacement where it's like, all right, great. I know I'm going to dinner and my wife is making dinner. I just want something light for now. And then after the shows are over, I'll go home and do whatever I do. But it's perfect in the middle of the afternoon. Chris Hunter, I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me on, brother.
Absolutely. D'Anthony Holloway is not here. He'll be back tomorrow, though, kids. I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros podcast. Good night, everyone.